Every car manufacturer drops the ball at some point and gets it wrong. Bentley have, Porsche have, Mercedes have, you name a brand, they've got it wrong. Even the Japanese giant that is Honda got it wrong. And this is the car that they absolutely dropped the ball on. It's quite an interesting story because it's not necessarily about a Civic Type-R, it's about how Honda had the perfect formula and for some bizarre reason decided to get it wrong. This car's a little bit different. It's not a standard FN2, I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but it makes for quite a compelling story. So back in 2007 when this car was launched, it had some serious boots to fill, and those boots were the boots of the EP3 Honda Civic Type-R. This is what they decided they were going to follow on that little history line of Type-Rs with, and they made some critical errors with this car, and enthusiasts hated it. The other thing that had to be said is when this car came out, it looked a little bit weird, futuristic, spaceship-like. And it has to be said, I think it's now starting to wear its age rather well. I think it suits the modern world that we live in. 20 years ago, this looks weird, but it wasn't the worst thing about it. Now we are sat in Yorkshire at the moment in the beautiful summer weather, so let's hop inside where I'm not getting blown about, and I'll tell you the differences and where they really made a tragic mistake. August is a beautiful time of year in Yorkshire. Now, although this car looked like this, it absolutely divided opinion in other areas as well. So the Civic Type-R was never meant to be the fastest one. I mean, sure, they wanted it to be the fastest one, but it was renowned as being the most exciting car that you could get in the hot hatch lineup. So the EP3 is still regarded as one of the best Type-Rs that you could buy, and that was for good reason. It was to do with the way that it drove, the suspension, the way that the VTEC engine revved. Everything was just perfect in it, and although it wasn't a lap time record setter, it was the one that you'd most want to drive. It's the one that you wanted in your garage, and the one that got ruined a lot by the chavs. However, the mechanical differences on this car are the ones that really split the VTEC boys from liking the old one, not liking the new one. Now, spoiler alert, I've actually bought this car, and I'm going to explain why I've bought it a little bit later on, and I'm hoping that it'll all start to make sense at the end of this video. I think these are a hidden gem now, in particular this one. But let's just get on the road and I'll explain exactly what the differences are and why they were so hated and why I quite like it. Sorry, mother. There's something about a Type-R that just makes you drive like a hooligan. Don't know why. I think it's got to be the VTEC noise for me, just the way it bounces off the limiter. Now, the EP3 was a better car, but it was a better car for lots of different reasons. The biggest one was suspension. Let me talk you through exactly what went wrong with the suspension on the FN2, because it wasn't just a simple case of, oh, they did it slightly differently. They were trying to make a completely different car. Essentially, this car has got something called a magic seat configuration, which sounds exciting, doesn't it? What they're trying to do was make it more practical. Essentially, the fuel tank usually on a hatchback is underneath the rear seats, and what they did on this car is they moved it to underneath the front seats. And any Honda boys in the chat who want to correct me on this, you're more than welcome to fact check me in the comments below. But essentially what it allowed them to do was create a rear seat design like no one had ever seen before. You could have a flat boot floor in your Civic hatchback. Now, that was great for the standard Civic, the one that wasn't a Type-R, but for this, it meant there had to be changes to the suspension that were unforgivable. Because these seats folded into the boot floor and the boot floor was then flat, it left less room on the back end. So on the EP3 it had double wishbone rear suspension, which allowed it to be sort of better balanced. It allowed it to create a bit of lift-off oversteer if you wanted to. It was a fantastically drivable car. And what they had to do with this car was, well, they had two options: spend a load of money or put a torsion bar in the rear. Now, the journalists didn't miss that trick. And unfortunately, they noticed that the car felt totally different. They noticed the car wasn't planted as well in the corners. It didn't have the same sort of mid-corner feel that the original Type-R had. And that was the underpinnings of this car. Now, it wasn't the only problem with the FN2. Oh, I love a VTEC! I'll go on to the engine in a second. The other problem with an FN2 is it's heavier, considerably. 70 kilos. Now, 70 kilos might not sound like a load of weight, but when you're starting off only around 1200 kilos, it is a significant difference. It's like having a passenger in the car. Maybe not one as fat as me, but an average size human in the car, which on a sort of lightweight, hot hatch, meant to be good for lift off oversteer and having a bit of fun in the corners, that makes all the difference. And again, the journalist picked up on this. However, they did improve the engine. So apparently it had better flowing heads. It came into VTEC a little bit earlier, so rather than sort of 5800 revs, it came in I think 5400 revs, and it was a better engine. You would expect a huge amount more horsepower, wouldn't you? And you did, you got more horsepower. Just the one. One single pony is all they managed to release for all those changes, but it is better mid-range through the rev range. And at the top, I'm sick of that. If you would like a white performance car that was improved into the next generation, then we are giving away free tickets on this raffle at the moment. So this is our SLK. I promise the plug will only last for 30 seconds, but you can get a ticket for free on this for being a subscriber. So make sure you subscribe as well at the same time. And you just need to use the promo code MANSCLUB, MANSCLUB, in the promo code. You don't need to buy any tickets, you can have one for nothing. Obviously, we'd really like it if you bought a ticket, but it's our chance to give something back to the community and also to charity as well. So on the back of these, we like to do donations to charities such as Andy's Man's Club. Recently gave him a cheque for £2,000 on the back of a couple of raffles. It just makes the whole world go round. So it'd be great if you got involved and bought a ticket. However, back to the problems with this Civic, there were lots of different key problems. Now, they had a solution to all of this, and they brought out a rather exceptional car, and that car was the Mugen 20. Mugen, if you hadn't heard of them before, is essentially a Japanese performance company. They've been around since the 70s, and they got involved with Honda to try and fix all of these differences. And by heck did they fix them. They created this car, which was 237 horsepower using a 2-litre VTEC engine. It had lighter weight wheels. The suspension was totally different. The ECU, obviously different to get more power, had higher lift cams in there. It was just a totally different animal. It is what the Civic should have been. So finally Honda had cracked this code as to how to make the new shape as good as the old shape. But they only released 20 of them, and they charged you £38,000 if you wanted one, which is madness. Now, as you might know, I've got a car buying website called Carmora. I operate it with my friend Paul. Say friend, now business partner, because we're sensible adults, even though I'm driving this Type-R around on its limiter. And it came in, the reason we ended up buying this car is because the guy who was selling it was having issues getting it valued, because it is an unusual car. It's a Mugen 200. I'm going to go into that in a second as well. But all the prices getting through were giving you just standard book price. Now, the reason we're doing well at Carmora is because we are using humans to value cars rather than book prices. So we'll look at every car in its individual merit and just see whether or not we actually think it's worth more than you've been offered, less than you've been offered, where it might sit in the market. Essentially, our job is to buy a car from the member of public, and we are always looking to buy, by the way, not just Civic Type-Rs. We've bought Ferraris, we've bought Fiestas, and everything in the middle. Anyway, he was getting offered half what we paid him for this car, and I'll explain that when I go around it as well. I think this car drives really well. Yes, it's not overly forgiving in the bumps. You can tell it's got a torsion bar at the rear. It's not independent suspension. It could be better. It reminds me a little bit in the corners of like a Saxo VTS, if you remember those, VTS, VTR. They had a torsion bar and everyone used to adjust them to have them sat on the back side. It reminds me a bit of how they drive on a country road. You hit a bump, you know about it. They're just not forgiving, for want of a better word. Anyway, let's talk about this specific example. We'll pull over and I'll talk you through why I've been a little bit daft and maybe overpaid for this car. Let me talk you through all the key differences on this little investment piece. So this is where things start to get really weird, because as I said, this is a Mugen 200. It is paying homage to the Mugen that saved the FN2's reputation, and you'd expect a lot of differences. There are many key differences on this car. So first of all, the grille is different, the front splitter is different, and apparently there's actually been some research gone into the aerodynamics in a wind tunnel. Ironic, where we stood at the minute. The wheels are 19-inch Mugens. The side skirts, I believe, are different as well. The exhaust tips are different. The exhaust can be different if you spec it, but it isn't on this one, and most of them weren't specced with the exhaust. You get a lovely badge here. you get a plaque on the inside, but the key difference on this is actually under the bonnet. Allow me to show you that. The critical difference on this, for all your money, you get a badge. And then you get another badge here. This is probably the weirdest car I think I've ever bought, but again, I'll go into the reasons that I bought it, and we will do that draggy test as well, I've not forgotten. I think people pay for exclusivity, because it would appear there are no differences on this to the original FN2. What Honda did was they got the Civic Type-R wrong, then brought out this amazing car that everybody loved and went, yeah, the journalists are all over it, you've nailed it, perfect, thank you. Then they went more mass market by giving us 200 of them and put a body kit on it. It does, however, and this is quoting from Autocar, so if there's any Honda geeks in the comments, I'm sure there's plenty of you, let me know if it's true or not, it's got a mechanical LSD, apparently. It's a really weird car, this, only available in Championship White with gloss black mirrors. And that's it. Now I paid, I think, probably too much money for this car, but we put it into We Buy Any Car and it was showing £2,800. We paid £6,000, double, for a plaque and a kit. But I think it's the right money for this car. I think this car is probably 10 grand retail, maybe a smidge more. There are some bits that need doing on it, so it's got an incredible service history with Honda. 14 stamps in the book, it's due another service, and obviously you're gonna have to go back to Honda, aren't you, to keep that heritage and pedigree. It needs a couple of bits doing underneath it as well, so a couple of the bottom arms I think are a bit ropey on the Honda health check that they did, but you've got to bear in mind, it is 16 years old, it's done 100,000 miles, so probably a grand's worth of prep to put it right. It's probably a 10 grand retail car, but I'm not selling it. I think this is the sort of thing that, as weird as it is, because it actually doesn't serve any purpose, I think people want. They do command more money. The most recent one I saw sold took 6 days to sell. It had done 158,000 miles. It had more owners than this, I think this is 6 or 7, and it sold for 7.5 grand in a week. Honda people are just a bit weird, and I'm happy to be part of that. Should we get out and do a bit of a draggy, see how quick she is? So we've had a few runs at this and we're trying to get the right time. Now we are on a national speed limit here, and doing 30 to 70 is perfectly acceptable. But the gearbox on this is really annoying because it's still got a bit of first left at 30, and in second you're not quite into VTEC. So I'm going to go for first, I think, and go for the gear changes and just try and be as accurate as possible as we can with this. But yes, it's proving interesting to say the least. So we're onto the bypass now, into second. Don't like putting it in first as you're moving. Right, okay, first gear, here we go. And get to 30, go. Still got it with the big licks. Not as good as I thought. I'll explain back at the unit. Welcome back to the unit. So, lap time, draggy time, we'll go through in just a second, but I think I've made a good purchase here. Basically, Paul and I, my business partner at Carmora, have bought this with a view, we're just going to sit on it, have a bit of fun in it if we want to do. Now, it required a load of work when it came in, more cosmetic than any, so we've had it really well detailed. So Tim, who's my detailer, who's full-time, has obviously given it a proper jet wash, it's been machine polished, we've had all the wheels off the car, gone around all the calipers, repainted those, just making sure it's as bright as a button, as nice as it possibly can be. And I think it's turned out really well. I think this is going to make a good investment. And the reason for that is because it is the last of the naturally aspirated Civic Type-Rs. This was the start of where they started going wrong, and it's bizarre to me that only because they changed the rear seats, so much went wrong with this car. I think that this could not be worth a fortune, but will be worth more than it's worth now. And I am a bit of a JDM nut. That is my Subaru in there, that if you've not seen on the channel before, that is currently getting wet sanded all over, because it got painted about 3 years ago and I never did anything with it. I think JDMs are the future. And this is a touch of class. What do you think? Would you have bought it? Do you think I've done the right thing, wrong thing? Now, the times. This did 30 to 70 in 7.3, which it surprised me because that Audi TT up there, which is a 225 BAM, one of the earlier ones, actually did it in less, which is a car that's older. Now it's 4-wheel drive, I don't know how much of a difference that made, but you can see where the Civic boys started to fall out with them because they're not like raw power cars. Yes, that's 225 horsepower, that's 200, but I expected a little bit more. It checks out all right. We did a vehicle score check with the car. It scored really well out of 999. Great way of checking your car, by the way, for free. There's a link in the description below if you want to use Vehicle Score. They're obviously a big supporter of our channel. And AA Cars are going to come round and do an inspection on it as well and make sure everything's fine. But I'm really pleased with this. And I think for the money, it's worth a chance. And it's also been great fun. If you've got something exciting to sell, I would love to buy it. It doesn't have to be something rare like this, but we are finding that we're buying more and more cars by being human in the way that we're valuing. So, Carmora is the website you need to remember, and this channel is the one you need to subscribe to. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.